Fox News alert, the ships had better get moving in Strait of Hormuz. The U.S.-Iran two-week ceasefire hinges on that narrow waterway where oil ships must make it through. Weeks of U.S. and Israeli airstrikes have massively weakened Iran's military. However, the question, will it be the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, their military, to decide which ships go through Hormuz? We are watching very closely. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff gave an update a short time ago. Let's watch.
This morning, a big day for world peace. We have a chance at real peace and a real deal. The War Department, for now, has done its part. We stand ready in the background to ensure Iran upholds every reasonable term. And as everyone knows, nobody makes a better deal than President Trump.
We welcome the ongoing ceasefire, and as the Secretary said, we hope that Iran chooses a lasting peace. But as Secretary Hegseth said, let us be clear, a ceasefire is a pause, and the joint force remains ready, if ordered or called upon, to resume combat operations with the same speed and precision as we've demonstrated over the last 38 days, and we hope that that is not the case.
You heard the words there. We must remember that a ceasefire is just a pause. Everything's still on the table, potentially. The deal comes after a threat by the president that had some people up in arms. Congressman Dan Crenshaw summed it up this way in a post. A lot of pearl clutching from the usual suspects online and cable news about ending civilization. Take a breath. Do some critical thinking and pretend like we actually know how President Trump communicates. Should he be taken literally? You really believe he's going to vaporize the Persian population? Really? Have you been paying attention the last 11 years? Messages on state television called for Iranian citizens to form chains around key power sites to act as human shields in case of strikes on those power plants. A closer look shows those shields were mostly made up of young people, women, and children, a vivid reminder of how little the brutal regime cares for its own people. And it's a striking contrast to the images from January. If those same people were involved in the fierce anti-regime protesting, their own leaders would likely have shot them dead or publicly executed them. Iran has carried out a string of recent executions on alleged protesters. Even in the days and hours leading up to the ceasefire, we were covering it coming out of this weekend. Some estimates say the regime has killed more than 40,000 in connection with the unrest. Former Central Command Naval Forces Commander, Vice Admiral John Fozzie Miller, is coming up in focus. We are so glad to have him. We begin with Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst on the ground in Tel Aviv. Trey.
Harris, good morning. We start with breaking news. State media reports that Iran has halted the passage of oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz after Israeli attacks on Hezbollah in Lebanon. Earlier today, we know 2 vessels were able to go through this passageway. But again, state media is reporting that the Iranians are choking off the strait. I just got off the phone with a senior Israeli official who was sounding the alarm about this action by the Iranians, saying only just a few hours into this ceasefire, the Iranians are already showing that they are trying to leverage their control over the strait and put pressure on global energy trade. And it also comes after reports overnight indicate that an Iranian attack hit Saudi Arabia's east-to-west oil pipeline, and there was significant damage that was currently being assessed. This is important because this pipeline is the only outlet for Saudi crude exports. And as the Iranians are putting pressure on the strait, they once again are trying to leverage this ability to put pressure on global energy exports. It comes after we got a new statement from President Trump this morning about Iran's nuclear program. The president on Truth Social said the United States will work closely with Iran, which we have determined has gone through what they will be a very productive regime change. There will be no enrichment of uranium, and the United States will, working with Iran, dig up and remove all of the deeply buried nuclear dust. The president referring to Iran's enriched uranium there. And again, a lot of moving parts with this agreement that is very new. We saw overnight new strikes against Iranian oil infrastructure on Lavan Island. This is just off the coast of Iran. A refinery there was reportedly hit in early morning attacks. We don't know which country is responsible for the strikes, but we do know it comes after the Iranians broke the ceasefire hours after President Trump announced it, launching missiles and drones at regional countries and U.S. ally Israel. Here's what it looked like in the skies of Tel Aviv just 2 hours after the ceasefire went into effect. What you just saw there was an Iranian ballistic missile with a cluster warhead, those bomblets raining down on Israel's second largest city of Tel Aviv. This came after the ceasefire was announced by President Trump and an indication that it will take time to get this agreement in place. We're looking at a number of different fronts here, and the Israelis are preparing for the possibility of more incoming fire. But I do want to bring up this post by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu overnight, who agreed with President Trump about this ceasefire with Iran. The Prime Minister said in part, quote, Israel also supports the U.S. effort to ensure that Iran no longer poses a nuclear, missile, and terror threat to America, Israel, Iran's Arab neighbors, and the world. The 2-week ceasefire does not include Lebanon. Now, we heard from the president through reports earlier today who agreed with the prime minister. Hezbollah and Israel are expected to exchange blows. What you are looking at here is the Iranian capital of Tehran. Early this morning, pro-regime demonstrators took to the streets. They chanted death to America and death to Israel. They were chanting victory and burning American flags. It gives you a sense of the regime support that still exists in the Iranian capital. And when we go out here to this image of the Lebanese capital of Beirut, we may even have some live images for you here. Smoke was rising from the horizon of southern Beirut, the Dakhia neighborhood, earlier today. While the ceasefire is in place between Israel, the United States, and Iran, the Israelis launched what they are calling the largest round of strikes since their operation began. More than 100 different targets hit across Lebanon. There are first responders there on the scene. These are live images from the Lebanese capital of Beirut. Remember, this is the Dakhia neighborhood of southern Beirut, a Hezbollah stronghold. Officials there in Beirut say dozens of people were wounded, many killed in these strikes that took place. And the Iranians, once again, through state media, are threatening direct retaliation against Israel for this strike against their largest proxy in the region. Harris?
Oh, boy, I got to tell you, this is the least ceasefire-like ceasefire I think that anybody might have anticipated. Iran certainly doesn't see it that way, obviously. Look, you had some breaking news, and I want to push in on it. Was it overnight, you said, that Saudi Arabia's east-west oil pipeline, very critical movement of oil there, was hit by Iran? Was that before or after the ceasefire?
We don't know the exact timing of that strike, but it's very significant because this is the main pipeline that Saudi Arabia uses to move oil. And when the Strait of Hormuz is choked off, it's the only pipeline that they're able to use to get those exports out to the world. Something important here that we should note, it wasn't just Israel that came under attack after the ceasefire went into effect. This morning, there were dozens of drones launched at Kuwait from Iranian territory. The United Arab Emirates also came under an Iranian missile attack. There were reports of missiles toward Bahrain and Qatar. So as this is taking place, the Iranians don't appear very serious about this ceasefire agreement. The president has offered them a good faith opportunity, a window of 2 weeks to reach a broader agreement. And we heard from the president before about Iran's nuclear program. I spoke with Israeli officials earlier today. They said despite these attacks on energy infrastructure across the region, the #1 priority for the Israeli military echelon and government is the enriched uranium. They understand that the Iranians were pursuing a nuclear weapon before, and they say that if that enriched uranium remains in the country, that in the future, Iran could be the new North Korea. Harris?
Wow, that's a lot to get to, and my first guest is perfect on all of it. Trey, thank you very much. In focus now, Vice Admiral John Fozzie Miller, former CENTCOM Naval Forces Commander. Sir, it is great to have you. Let's start with the Strait of Hormuz and the ceasefire and what it really looks like now that Iran can pick and choose who goes through there if they so see it. At least that's how it looks.
Well, good morning, Harris. Thanks for having me. Any long-term solution to this conflict when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz has to result in the Strait of Hormuz being open and free for commercial traffic without interference from Iran or from any other nation. It's an international strait, and the ability of Hormuz to function as an international strait is only being impeded by the Iranian regime. And so until that stops, it's very difficult to see any long-term resolution of this crisis.
So that's one thing. The other was what Trey Yingst was just describing right then, how Iran is continuing to threaten all of its neighbors. And look, the list got longer. I knew about Kuwait and Israel overnight after the ceasefire, but the UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, Admiral, those countries can't just sit there and be patient for 2 weeks. They got to fight. They got to defend themselves. I mean, you know, they've got incoming now, so they've got to fight that off defensively. That doesn't seem like a ceasefire.
I don't think it looks very much like a ceasefire anywhere you look, other than we've stopped bombing in Iran. The Iranians haven't stopped, and of course the GCC countries that have taken the brunt of this over the last month are continuing to receive incoming fire. So I think we'll get to a point very soon where the GCC can no longer wait to see what's going to happen, and they're going to start to take matters into their own hands and defend themselves through offensive action on their part.
How do you see actually what we're doing right now in terms of the capability that we've taken away from Iran? I mean, we haven't completely pulled out of that region. Should we? Do you anticipate that we would kind of pull back even more during the ceasefire to send a message? Or would you rather not see the U.S. do that?
Well, I think we're going to continue to see a buildup of forces. We have forces on the way that haven't arrived yet, and there's no reason to turn them around. So we ought to be using this opportunity for the next couple of weeks to resupply, to bring more forces into the region so that we're ready at any point if the ceasefire breaks down or if we're unable to negotiate a long-term agreement that's acceptable.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth says because military strikes have killed so many leaders in Iran, there is a new regime in place. Let's watch.
It's a new group of people who've seen the full capability of the United States military and has a new calculus about what it means to negotiate with us, hence why they came to the table wanting a ceasefire and the shooting to stop. So this new regime, which the regime has been changed, has a different interaction with the U.S.
Look, you know that part of the world well, Admiral Miller. What does it mean when our Secretary of War says there's a new group of people?
Well, this new group of people are the same people that rounded up women and children yesterday to go stand on bridges and buy power plants. And so I don't know that the regime folks that have been replaced are if we have people that are any better in place now or that are any more trustworthy than what we've previously seen from the regime.
The good side of all of this is that, as you've pointed out, I mean, we are in that ceasefire moment. Real quickly, how do you see this playing out if, in fact, what we saw overnight and continuing to see today continues from Iran?
Well, I don't think the ceasefire continues very long if things continue as they have since the ceasefire announcement was made. But I think long-term, what we want to be able to make sure we do, and Iran's got an opportunity here to take a breath, take a step back, to let shipping in and out of the Strait of Hormuz to stop attacking the GCC nations and to prove that it's willing and able to negotiate in good faith. I haven't seen that yet, and until we see that, I have very little confidence that this ceasefire will hold or that it'll lead to a permanent settlement.
Well, and military talk, stay ready so you don't have to get ready is what we'll continue to do, it sounds like, from you.
There you go.
Admiral, thank you very much. Good to see you. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.